Good morning, Europe. It's Tuesday, the 12th of June. Our top stories for you. Full denuclearization. That is what North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un has agreed to after a historic summit with Donald Trump in Singapore. Will he keep his promise? Full coverage ahead. Plus, over in the Cube, our social media news desk.
So are these the 4 points to peace? Social media is dissecting this image of the agreement between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. And in the Cube, we'll have all the details.
Heading to shore after a political standoff, over 600 stranded migrants are finally heading to Spain. Our correspondent is on the boat talking to them about their hopes and their dreams. And big Brexit week, it's the moment of truth for the UK's Theresa May, with a series of key Brexit votes in Parliament that could decide her fate. Thank you for joining us this hour. We begin with breaking news from Singapore, where U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un have just signed a landmark agreement during their historic summit. Well, that document says the U.S. and North Korea will work to ensure peace and the, quote, complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, unquote. Now, here's the two leaders speaking in the past hour.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
역사적인 문건에 서명을 하게 됩니다.
Today, we had a historic meeting and decided to leave the past behind, and we are about to sign a historic document.
세상은 아마 중대한 변화를 보게 될 것입니다.
The world will see a major change.
오늘과 같은 이런 자리를 위해서 노력해 주신
Thank you very much. It's fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you a little bit later. And we're very proud of what took place today. I think our whole relationship with North Korea and the Korean Peninsula is it's going to be a very much different situation than it has in the past. We both want to do something. We both are going to do something. And we have developed a very special bond. So people are going to be very impressed. People are going to be very happy. And we're going to take care of a very big and very dangerous problem for the world. And I want to thank Chairman Kim. Spent a lot of time together today, very intensive time. And I would actually say that it worked out for both of us far better than anybody could have expected. I think far better. I watched the various news reports. I would say far better than anybody even predicted. And this is going to lead to more and more and more. And it's an honor to be with you. Very great honor. Thank you. Thank you to all of your representatives very much.
Well, for more on the details of that agreement, let's head over to the Cube, where Alex has been looking at that document. Alex.
I have, Tessa, before it's been officially released, and this is where social media comes into its own. Now, welcome to the Cube, our social media centre. The team here working hard in the early hours this morning, keeping across all developments from Singapore. And when Donald Trump held up that image of the agreement, obviously, social media started taking it to pieces. We have also been going through a high-res, zoomed-in version of this to double-check the transcriptions that were wonderfully provided by Jonathan Cheng of the Wall Street Journal, who was tweeting about this, kind of leading the charge on this, if you like. And these are the 4 substantive points from that document signed by Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. The first is the United States and the DPRK in North Korea commit to establish a new relationship in accordance with the desire of the peoples of the two countries for peace and prosperity. A lot of discussion about North Korea wanting the latter as well as the former. There's point number 2 here as well. The United States and the DPRK will join their efforts to build a lasting and stable peace regime on the Korean Peninsula. Real emphasis on peace here. Point 3 reaffirms an agreement made in April for denuclearization, working towards the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And point 4 harks back to the Korean War. There is no official peace treaty. There is just, if you like, a ceasefire in agreement between North Korea and South Korea. There is no official end to that war. So the 4th point in this document says the United States and the DPRK agree to repatriate remains, here referring to American service personnel killed in that war. So these are the substantive points. I just want to bring you another detail we've had in the last few moments from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who has tweeted He's tweeted to say he has spoken with the foreign ministers of Japan and South Korea, relaying these key points made in today's summit. So there we go. We'll have the latest reaction for you here in theCUBE. You can let us know your thoughts at any time using hashtag theCUBE.
All right, thank you for that, Alex and the theCUBE team. And for more, I'm joined in the studio by Alistair Sanford. Alistair, these are big promises. And will these promises be kept? I mean, we've seen how deals can be undone.
Well, that's impossible to answer, but on North Korea's previous history, lots of analysts would say that they haven't kept their promises before. Alex mentioned Mike Pompeo. Well, before he said that this would set the framework for the hard work to follow.
Thank you very much.
And initial analysis would suggest there's an awful lot of hard work to come. Outside those 4 specific points in the preamble, President Trump also committed to provide security guarantees to North Korea. It doesn't seem to be anything more on that, but I think South Korea will be wanting to know exactly what those security guarantees involve. And as for the rest, well, there's also this commitment to complete denuclearization. Yes, it's there at least twice in the document, but as we've heard, North Korea have already committed to that in principle. The question is where this actually goes. Will there be concrete detail afterwards, or is it just going to be a big propaganda coup for both sides?
Yeah, indeed. And obviously, what everybody will be asking is, what is Kim Jong-un going to get out of this in return?
Well, he's got a massive place on the world stage alongside the leader of the free world with their flags behind, and this will be relayed in North Korea for a very long time to come. Mike Pompeo talked about wanting complete, verifiable denuclearization. That is going to be the devil in the detail. What sort of process is going to be put in place to work towards that? And of course, all the other issues that Japan and China are worried about that don't seem to be contained in this document at all.
And there's also that potential economic prosperity, obviously, that we've heard before. Thank you for that, Alistair Sanford, for that. Well, we are going to be following all the developments of the story, so do stay with us for that coverage. And we are also following developments from the Aquarius, the SOS Mediterranean ship currently stranded in the Mediterranean with 629 migrants on board. Our correspondent, Annelise Borges, is the only broadcast journalist on the boat. I spoke to her earlier to find out the latest.
We've been waiting for instructions for the past 30 hours here on this same position on standby off the coast of Malta and Italy. We have finally received instructions to go to Valencia. So Italian authorities have accepted that offer made by Madrid, by the Spanish government to take all 629 people aboard the Aquarius to Spain. Of course, even though having a clear vision as to what will happen is a good thing for people here, medics on board and staff have been warning against this trip. They said this will be an extremely difficult trip for the people on board. Take a listen to what the coordinator of SOS Mediterranean had to say about traveling to Spain.
We could theoretically only do this kind of travel if we had a very limited amount of people who can be hosted and accommodated inside a protected space, so not being exposed on the open decks, because the weather conditions are expected to deteriorate significantly over the next days, and especially in unsheltered waters like we would encounter from here to Spain.
So this is finally the plan that Italian authorities have been going with. We are now going to be heading to Spain, and there will be disembarking some of the people. 2 Italian ships are to be coming our way to disembark some 500 people so that Aquarius can travel to Spain with only 100 people on board. The other 500 will be also traveling to Spain. These 3 vessels will then, so Aquarius and 2 Italian vessels will be heading to at some point today.
And Annelise, we heard that both the weather and living conditions on the Aquarius are deteriorating. Can you tell us what life on board is like?
Well, life on board has been really difficult. Everyone, the people who have been rescued, of course, they are extremely tired. They had spent several hours at sea prior to being rescued. And over the last 30 hours or so that we have been waiting to learn what would happen to them, the situation has been really difficult because, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty. Many people on board were very scared about the possibility of returning to Libya. Medics and staff have been walking around the boat, trying to reassure them, showing where we were on the map, telling them that we were much closer to Europe than to Libya, that we would not return them to Libya. And Libya is, of course, a huge concern for these people. Most of them have traveled through the country, and of course we all know what terrible conditions the migrants are subjected to when they are in Libya. I spoke to one of the pregnant women on board who has spent some time in Libya, and she told me about why she did this trip, what she was running away from. Take a listen.
Away. There were like 300 girls in a particular place. They all ran away.
What do you hope Europe will bring to your life?
Yeah, I'm just hoping God give me the grace. I have my baby. I start working and I can send some money down for them to survive. Because in Nigeria there's no money. I studied law department.
Law. You want to be a lawyer?
I want to help. I want to stop Boko Haram when I become a lawyer. I want to go there and stop them, stop killing people.
629 people on board and 629 people with dreams, with aspirations. Whether or not they will actually reach shore, reach those dreams is anyone's guess at this stage. We are instructed then by Italian authorities to head to Spain. This is supposed to happen at some point today. As we speak, this ship, the Aquarius, is being loaded with supplies that are being delivered by the Italian Coast Guard.
Annelise Borges reporting there. Do stay with us in Good Morning Europe. We'll be back after a look at the weather. You're watching Good Morning Europe, a recap of the top story. After an historic meeting between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Singapore, Pyongyang has committed to full denuclearization. The countries also agreed to build a new relationship and to establish peace between North and South Korea. And for the latest on the details of the deal, we spoke to NBC News correspondent Bill Neely, who's in Singapore.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Well, this historic summit is over. It ended with what President Trump called a pretty comprehensive document. We've now seen that document. It is 2 pages long, really only one because the second page is more or less covered with the signatures of the two leaders. And the crucial thing is point 3. Point 3 simply reaffirms what Kim Jong-un agreed with the South Korean president in April. And I'll read that to you. Point 3 says, reaffirming the April 27th, 2018 Panmunjom Declaration, the DPRK, that's North Korea, commits to work towards the complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. To work towards an intention, a promise, nothing more than that, and it does not define what denuclearization means. And in the text just before that, there is a repeat of that. Kim reaffirmed his firm and unwavering commitment to the complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Again, just a promise. President Trump, it says, committed to provide security guarantees to North Korea. Again, the security guarantees were not spelled out, but you could argue that the United States has in fact given something new, and Kim has simply reaffirmed what we heard him promise 2 months ago. And as we know with North Korea from 1994, the agreement that it signed there, and in the 2000s other deals it struck, it may promise, it doesn't necessarily deliver. So this is a fairly wordy agreement, but vague. Nice words, too, from President Trump earlier to Kim Jong-un, calling him a very smart, very worthy negotiator, a very talented man, a great personality, and so on. Justin Trudeau, I wonder what he is thinking when he listens to those words, because President Trump came from one summit with the Europeans and with Justin Trudeau having been hostile, and has now sat down and poured praise on an Asian dictator. Kim Jong-un was almost seen to blush. He was certainly beaming after those words from President Trump. So look, the devil is in the detail. This summit is over. President Trump considers it the beginning of a process, and there will be, as he put it, more and more and more. but I think the skeptics will look at this agreement and think this is pretty thin. From Singapore, Bill Neely, NBC News for Euronews. Back to you.
Well, not surprisingly, this is blowing up on social media. Alex in theCUBE is monitoring all the developments. Alex.
I am, Tessa, and having just looked at it, it's still the #1 worldwide trend on Twitter. Welcome to theCUBE, our social media centre, where the team have been monitoring this story and all developments on it and all your thoughts through the early hours, and we're still doing it now. So how is it playing worldwide? Well, it's front page news, not just in North Korea, as we saw in earlier papers, but now in Japan. Pictures from the summit making the front pages in Japan. Now, we know Japan obviously were not involved in this summit, but they were nervous about the outcomes. Ultimately, Donald Trump negotiating with North Korea means a lot for Japan's security. So there's a sense here that it's front page news and people are intently looking at the text of the agreement. So let's also have a look at this from Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary. Here she's sharing this of Donald Trump leaving the hotel. She's also tweeted that Kim Jong-un has left the hotel. It seems to be here, Donald Trump meeting with North Korean dignitaries, including military officials as well, in this image. I mean, these are remarkable pictures. Just remind ourselves where we were 6 months, a year ago. The idea of Donald Trump shaking hands with the brass of North Korean military that he's in the past threatened with fire and fury. I mean, this really is incredible. So, for his supporters, this is brilliant news. Nigel Farage, dubbed Mr. Brexit in America, a long-term supporter of Donald Trump, tweeting that Kim's commitments to complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula are in the joint text. He describes those as incredible. Trump exceeds all expectations, heaping praise on Donald Trump. Other people a bit more cautious. Alexandra here saying the signed agreement between North Korea and the United States seems unsurprising. Tired foreign policy cliches that are unlikely to move negotiations forward. So she's saying, OK, it's easy to sign this piece of paper. It's what comes next that matters. Others have an even harder line. Alistair Coleman here, who monitors North Korean television for the BBC, says now he's seen the text of this Singapore declaration, as he's calling it. There's absolutely nothing in it that hasn't been agreed before. What do you think? Let us know using #theCUBE.
All right, thank you for keeping an eye on all those reactions, Alex and the CUBE team. And we will be back with more after a quick look at the weather. You're watching Good Morning Europe. Welcome back. Today is a pivotal day for Brexit, with the House of Commons set to vote on UK Prime Minister Theresa May's plans. Well, earlier I spoke to Euronews correspondent Vincent McAviney in London and asked him how he expects today's vote to unfold.
Well, today is the biggest day yet for Brexit in Parliament. The key piece of legislation, the EU withdrawal bill, goes back from the House of Lords to the House of Commons. The government suffered 15 defeats in the Lords. They managed to put 15 separate amendments on the bill that the government now needs to try to get rid of. Today was originally being called Super Tuesday because they were going to try and get rid of them all in one day. They realised, though, that that was too ambitious, so they'll be voting across today and tomorrow. But these are really the key issues of Brexit. Today, they'll be voting on the Henry VIII powers, the exit date, having a meaningful vote, future EU laws and devolution. Tomorrow it's things like the customs union, EU legal rights, protecting the environment and the rights of refugees. The government here has a wafer-thin margin. It's in an alliance with the DUP, and Theresa May had a meeting last night with all of her MPs. She's struck some compromises between the Leave and the Remain sides in her party, and she's told them all, if we don't come together now, the EU is going to take advantage of this. But most of these votes we think that she will be secure on. Two of them, though, are ones to watch. The customs union, which has been very controversial, and having a meaningful vote at the end. MPs say at the end of this whole process they must be able to vote on the final deal, and Theresa May lose that vote later on today.
Vincent McAviney reporting there. Well, thank you for joining us today on Good Morning Europe, and do stay with Euronews for more on all of your top stories. And we'll leave you with today's No Comment, the latest pictures from that summit in Singapore.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Mr. President, did he agree to denuclearize first?
Thank you very much. It's fantastic.